Breaking tonight, after a week of Donald Trump raising what he calls questions about whether Senator Cruz can legally be president, we have brand new Fox News polls out on Republican nominee choice. That's missing some words. On the Republicans' choice for the presidential nominee out of Iowa and New Hampshire. We're just 23 days away from the Hawkeye States caucuses, and Senator Ted Cruz is maintaining his lead now on competitor Donald Trump with just 3 weeks to go until the votes pouring in. Cruz at 27, Trump at 23. In New Hampshire, however, the New York businessman has a comfortable lead at 33%. Next closest is Rubio at 15, Cruz a distant third at 12% there. Bush and Kasich round out the top five. Joining me now, Rich Lowry, who's editor at National Review and a Fox News contributor. Howie Kurtz is the host of Media Buzz right here on FNC. So it's getting, I don't want to say ugly, but it's close to ugly.
A little
it's getting
chippy.
Mildly unattractive between Trump and Cruz. Let me start with you on it, Howie, because you tell me, because of those poll numbers?
Well, the fact that the race is really tight in Iowa with Cruz a few points ahead, Megan, clearly has Donald Trump concentrating on what had been an utter non-issue. I mean, Ted Cruz having been born in Canada. Not that there's anything wrong in Canada, but it shows his ability to drive the media agenda yet again, even though he says he's just answering reporters' questions. And Cruz, who tried to kind of brush it off with a funny Fonzie video, now being asked about it by journalists day after day, and actually had to take a step to release his mom's Delaware birth certificate, even though, which I know you're going to talk about, even though nobody's questioning that Cruz's mother was an American citizen.
Just so the people know, you have to be a natural-born citizen in order to be the president of the United States, and that means, that's the argument. Cruz was not born in the United States, but he was born to an American mother. So if I'm an American woman, if I travel to Canada and I have a baby, my baby's an American citizen. But Trump is questioning that. And so that's what's led to days of distraction from Cruz's campaign. Rich, he released the birth certificate, and he's been trying to address this out on the campaign trail by explaining to people it's a non-issue. Is Trump's attack effective by pushing Cruz off message?
Yeah, it does get Cruz off his message, and it does create a certain haze of doubt about Cruz's eligibility, although every serious constitutional scholar pretty much has looked at this says there's nothing to it. And Trump is doing it in a completely underhanded way on the basis of this faux concern over Ted Cruz's interest.
Right. Nobody believes that. Nobody believes that. None of them has any concern for the other. I mean, they're competitors. Why should they?
Well, this is one of the great fake friendships now in American politics, because Trump says Cruz is such a nice guy, I just doubt his religion and his eligibility to be president, and then Cruz absorbs and deflects these attacks and say, oh, it's only the establishment attacking me, not my bosom buddy.
Well, and what's gotten interesting is Cruz, who's been so loath to launch criticism at Donald Trump because he wants Trump supporters. He thinks Trump is going to collapse, and he thinks they're going to come running to him. Said this today, and you tell me whether this is, really the beginning of the end between the two of them.
I feel confident that I'm never going to have a plane with my name painted on it. Now, how do you run a grassroots campaign? It's very time intensive. It's labor intensive. You don't do it sitting back in the easy chair. You don't do it from a TV studio in Manhattan.
Oh, that means I'll never be president, Howie.
Well, I think Ted Cruz is wedded to the strategy of not frontally attacking Donald Trump, because he's looked at polls that 60% or 55% of Trump supporters would come to Cruz as a second choice. So he's just not going to engage until he absolutely has to. And meanwhile, in the building behind me, most of Cruz's colleagues do not like the guy. He wears that as a badge of honor, talking about running against the Washington cartel. So John McCain, who went through this when he was the nominee, because he was born in the Panama Canal Zone, says, well, it's different. I think it's a legitimate question. We should look at it. Of course, McCain once called Cruz a wacko bird. So it is getting a little heated as we approach Iowa.
Yeah, he's different because I was born, on a military base. That's the U.S. soil. And he was born in, plain old ground in Canada.
Yeah, that McCain jibe, for anyone who watches those prison shows that run on another cable network, that is what a shiv is. And, it's funny that what Cruz said about the not running a campaign from a TV studio, and this year when everyone agrees all the rules are different, besides being hated by other senators, Ted Cruz is running a completely traditional campaign based on message, discipline, organization, and money.
I want to ask you, Rich, about these polls in Iowa that show Cruz ahead. But Trump's way ahead in New Hampshire. So does it really matter to Trump if he loses Iowa and wins New Hampshire? I mean, if he loses the first one?
I think it does, potentially. Now, it depends how much he loses, how it plays out. But I think Iowa is so important for Trump because it could be the difference between going 2 for 2 in Iowa and New Hampshire and immediately within 8 days of the real voting establishing a commanding position for the nomination, or losing Iowa, and then depending how it bounces, things can change a lot in that week between Iowa and New Hampshire, then potentially losing New Hampshire as well.
That is true, but the media expectation now is that Cruz will probably win Iowa. Therefore, it may not hurt Trump that much if he does come back with the big New Hampshire win just 8 days later.